For those who don't me, I've been in association for 30 years. I ref my last high school game on December 12th, 2014. I had a heart attack on the court. Luckily for me, my defibrillator brought me back to life. I have something called cardiomyopathy, which is the rhythm of the heart, which your heart can speed up and stop anytime. I'm able to do CYO games, but not the stress of high school games. I'm one of the fortunate ones. So whenever I get the chance, I plead for people to get a physical. It doesn't hurt. It can save your life. I'm here to recognize someone who retired this year after 27 years in the association. This person was born when FDR was president. A gallon of gas was 17 cents. The cost of a house was $7,500. And Dusty Buckley was starting his senior year in college. This person was someone I admired and looked up to. Sorry, Brian Jones, it wasn't you. This person is a second father to me, Tom Merle. I first met Tom about 25 years ago. We were doing a CYO playoff game at St. Mary's. There was a discrepancy with the scorebook. Tom and I talked it over and made a ruling. One team protested. I called Tom later that day. We went over what transpired. The protest was later overruled. From that day on, Tom was in my foxhole. Whenever I had an issue or funky situation, Tom was my first call after the game. Tom is my go-to guy, my wingman. About 10 years ago, Tom calls and says, "Do you want to go to Old Westbury for the girls' playoff games tonight?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Good, I'll pick you up at 5:30. There was one problem. The boss of the house, my wife, told me early in the day, under no circumstances are you going out tonight. The boss always let me do whatever I wanted, but not tonight. She wanted me home. So what does a good ref do? He always has a bag packed. So I called a buddy of mine and said, "Call me at 5:10, then at 5:20. Don't talk, I'll do the talking." The boss says, "Who was that?" I said, "Ginny from CYO. She needed a ref for games tonight." Phone rings again. I said, "It was Tom Merle. He's going to pick me up at 5:30. I get in the car and Tom says, "What's that?" I said, "Just drive off and get off the block and I'll tell you what happened." Without seeing Tom play basketball, remember, he saw Frank Sinatra's first concert live. I knew he was a good player by just being on the court with his floor park buddies. Tom DeLuca, TR, Hank Cluse, George Byrne. From what I've been told, they were pretty good basketball players. Other than floor park basketball and golf, his other passion in his life is his family. He loves his 2 kids and being a grandfather. Tom, now you can travel and watch the kids play sports all over. Tom's love of his life, Margaret, has gone through some tough times over the years, but you would never know it. Tom, just like on the basketball court and the softball field, you're the anti-Al Johnson, not a drop of sweat on you. Your calm, cool demeanor puts everyone at ease. Tom, we've done many games together, playoffs, county finals. You'll be missed, but not forgotten. Call me anytime. My bags will always be packed. All the best.
Episode 369, The Rant, Bob Wotruba, ever-present spectator, girls and boys basketball official, certified volleyball official, all while finding meaning and happiness in it all. The year was 2009, and Bob was on top of his game. Then everything, his life, reffing, all took a backseat as he suffered a heart condition during a game. In this pod, he discusses his early life playing, how he got into officiating, his come-up, the aftermath of the incident, and how he is so thankful in a much more meaningful way. Dedicated to his good friend Tom Merle, my conversation with Bob now. Welcome to another edition of The Rant. I'm your host, Ralph the Ref. I'm with a super special guest, local basketball junkie. I see this man so many places. I thought I was ubiquitous. Every time I look in the stands during the timeout, I've seen him at Chaminade. I've seen him at Farmingdale. I've seen him at Hofstra. I've seen him at any local gym in and around Nassau County. Former Board 41 certified basketball official and a longtime member for NBWBOA on the women's side, Mr. Bob Wotruba. How are you, my friend?
Good, thank you, Ralph.
I'm very honored to speak to you. I know we exchanged words one day in a parking lot at Eisenhower Park, still during the pandemic, and we were talking about volleyball. And I think you were fortunate enough to know some of the girls that were on my volleyball team, mainly Alex Eakin and Riley Gildea, who are some of the best kids I've ever coached. I just wanted to spotlight them since I know that they're moving on. I just saw Alex Eakin. She was, as the junkie volleyball player that she is, she was in the gym. I was there the other day because the girls have off-season workouts, the girls that are still in school, and there's volleyball tryouts for boys. Come to find out, I never thought I would ever see all those seniors be on in the gym playing volleyball. They were all going to be the managers because they can't get enough. And you know, it's really sad to me and happy at the same time because I know I'm never going to coach them, but I just wanted to let them know that they're some of the best kids that I've ever coached in my 20 plus years coaching. They compiled the record, I think 37-1. That's something that they should be proud of. They do have a championship. They were undefeated champions. So I don't ever want to negate any of the accomplishments that they had, but I know you know them. And I know you've just been around sports for so long. I took interest to wanting to speak to you. We're taping this on St. Patrick's Day, 2023. And, you know, March Madness is happening. But this past Tuesday, we had our annual NBWBOA dinner. And you had a beautiful send-off to one retiring Tom Merle. Just talk about what he meant to you in your career and what made you want to do that for him.
Well, I first met Tom in that the funky situation down at St. Mary's, and he stepped up. He knew his rules, which is very important during a game, and a gentleman of a man, first of all, and a man that knows his rules. I first met him. I just felt comfortable around him, and when that we had an incident in a playoff game, and we both talked it over, looked at each other, knew we had the right rule, and I said, from here on in, I know Tom will be my guy. Tom's a junkie too. Yeah, every time Floor Park girls or boys have a big high school game, or Manhasset boys, he's there. So he's like a junkie like I am.
I was thinking about that. I saw him in a couple of my games too, because I had Manhasset and I had Floral Park, the boys and the girls. By the way, Coach Spina's crazy. I just want to say that because I know he might hear this.
Yeah, well, the guy before him too was also Greg Mayhofer. So I think it's something in the Floor Park water.
Yeah. Something is going crazy in that.
Tom actually grew up with George Burns from Manhasset. So that's why he was always there.
Okay, that makes sense. And I was very fortunate, even though unbeknownst to me that last year was going to be his last year. He ended up not reffing at all this year, right?
Correct. He had a schedule, but he turned it back. He had some health issues and everything going on in his family, but everything seems to be going on a right track.
Right. So I ended up having a playoff game with him last year at Division, and I also had a game with him at Port Washington. And you know, I was really happy because you never know where somebody is at their career, and you can attest to this. It's very strange because I'm a young-looking person, but I'm a veteran at this point. Somebody could just be starting and they look old, and you know, you wouldn't be able to tell their experience, where I think in basketball, you could tell if somebody's put in the work. It's really difficult as a referee because you don't know where somebody is at their career. And that's why I appreciate somebody like you, because after hearing that speech from Tom, I just realized how much of a wealth of information that you have, a wealth of knowledge and experiences that you've had, that you were able to at least disseminate that at that moment in time, albeit I was drinking a lot of sangria. But I did want to just hear about your own story, only because of I think you guys are also bonded, aside from the refereeing thing with Tom Merle. He also had a complication on the court, and that's something that you're known for locally way back when. We'll get into that, but I just want to talk about this moment in time with officiating. You did have, a heart attack in the court?
Yes. I have a symptom called cardiomyopathy, which is a rhythm of the heart where the heart can stop at any time. Lucky for me, I have a defibrillator on me, so I dropped. I was out for 18 seconds. Luckily, my guardian angel was there. The trainer from Locust Valley, Tony Amaro, was there. And They were quick to respond, and I was lucky where I was when it happened.
That's amazing that was able to happen. I think about what happened in Cincinnati in that football. What's his name? Hamlin.
Yeah.
And I really feel that if that was a high school game, I'm not sure if it would have went the same way at that point.
I've been told by people that if you do get injured or something like that happen, it was good to be in Locust Valley because of their trainer at the time. Tony,
Right.
Paul Washington's got a good one. I mean, there's a couple good ones around. But that's why I always say that the athletic trainer is the most important person in the athletic department. Without them, who knows what can happen to people at any time.
And fortunately, defibrillators work, and you're here speaking to me in the flesh. And I would assume that you probably have, aside from probably having gratitude before with refereeing, you probably appreciated it more. And of course, your health after going through that. And then furthering that, Tom had a similar situation last year at Hofstra University, a big stage. And now, aside from the reffing part, you could probably commiserate with that. Do you feel like that made your bond even closer after something like that happened to him? That now that you guys can kind of relate to it?
Yeah, I mean, instead of talking basketball, we talk EKGs and heart rates and everything, blood pressure and all that stuff. So we've got closer as this incident happened with both of us. But I'm just glad he's okay, and I hope he has a happy retirement.
Something in your speech really rang true to me. And when you were just talking about you still do CYO games, but you can't deal with the stress of a high school game. And it just made me think that, you're just so fortunate to just even be able to do that. And I know that you segued into volleyball. Do you feel like, and this is hard for me to say because I know I'm personally invested in volleyball. And I also know that my volleyball experience is on steroids because I've been coaching one of the best teams over the course of 15 years where we play some of the high-level tournaments in Suffolk County. We play some of the best teams in Long Island in general. We are one of the best teams in Long Island. But I do know that if you're just doing normal CYO, public school, it's not necessarily the same experience. What I'm trying to ask to you is, I know that you have kind of segued and sublimated all of your energy in terms of officiating to volleyball. Does it give you the same competitive feeling that you did with basketball, or is it not the same?
Yes, I would say, because anytime you put your stripes on or your shirt on, you're in charge. You have the whistle. It's not as, I like volleyball, but I love basketball. So I get the same energy going up on the stands or being in the R2, but it's still not the same as basketball, which I truly love. What's
it like in CYO? I'm always curious because I think about the kids that I coach and I'm like, okay, so if one person can serve and you just aim at somebody, it potentially could be 12-1. And the only reason why it's 12-1 is because you missed the serve. Is it like that?
Well, it depends what level you have. I think after 5th or 6th grade, you only have 5 serves and then you rotate. Yes, I mean, you have some schools that have to win.
Right.
And you got some schools that are still learning. So every game you go to, you don't know what you're getting into, and you just have to officiate as you go.
Is it a big learning curve to learn the game? I'm not sure what your experience was before that, but I just know if you think about CYO and JV and then going all the way up to varsity, I feel like JV and varsity is kind of a different sport compared to like how different the rallies are and the gameplay. Was it tough? Was it a big learning curve to just learn how to officiate volleyball?
Absolutely. In the beginning, you just try to learn. I coached a little for CYO for a couple of years. So that got me into the games, coached my daughters and Riley. And once you get to the flow, then they'll go, I see that. Oh, yeah, okay, now I get it. Yes, rotate. Oh, yes, they get it. But once you get to the varsity level, it's a whole different situation.
Yeah. How was Riley when she was younger? Was she awesome like she is now?
Quiet.
Yeah, I'm always trying to nudge her to talk more. I'm like, you are the setter. You need to start talking
quiet,
more.
But she's silent assassin.
So I also want to just talk about the length of the pandemic. Obviously, we've able to eradicate it because we had rolled out the vaccines and, we have not had masks on for almost, I'd say, a year. But I know that interim, especially for me, making a website of reffing, my whole identity is reffing. I've reffed 10 sports. And then all of a sudden, when it was March 2020, which was around the same time 3 years ago, I don't know what my identity was because I was so used to being out of the house. I was so used to going to the city. I was so used to just going to Maryland and doing whatever I needed to do to get further. And then all of that stopped. And I don't know, I felt like a sense of loss because it was such a big part of my identity. It was such a big part of my day. It was such a big part of my thoughts. And when it was taken away from us, and it was universally taken away from all of us, and not even just that facet of life, there was just so many other things that ended up not happening. You know, going back March 2020, the junkie that you are, how difficult was it that there was nothing going on, and there was nothing going on for the foreseeable future?
Well, the one thing that got me was it was March Madness time. And you always look forward to those 3 weeks.
Right.
And now it's taken away from you.
Yeah.
Now it's like, what do? You watch all the, what's going on in the city, what's going on in the country. But, I was fortunate enough, my family, no one I know that got sick. So I did miss it, obviously. You get by it, you go for walks, you just kind of played board games with your family, you watch TV to a certain extent, but basketball was missed big time in his family.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'd say about a year and a half, it still was kind of shut down. And then they had that preempted spring season, which was, I was very reluctant to do public school games. And I just was reluctant to ref because I went from having that sense of loss to just becoming a different person. I just, kind of like shed the reffing part of me. And I just was like being really creative, working on this stuff. And I think when I came back on the court, it was like a mixture of like, I missed it, but I feel like I'm okay without it. And I don't know, I still feel a different way about it. Like, like I said before, I would do anything. I would do anything to just elevate my game. But now I'm cool with going to Mineola High School. It's 13 minutes from my house and I can go back for dinner. So I had a different perspective. What was your perspective when things started opening up and then there was scholastic sports and then you were able to officiate again?
Well, it gave me something to do. Gave us a different outlook on work, on life. I always loved January and February. People hate it. I like it because I'm going to games. I'm going out. It's a quick 2 months for me personally because I'm always going to games. It was good to get back. It stunk because the whole fan base couldn't be there, but at least as parents, we were there watching our kids play. So it was something else to do besides just talking to families and getting out.
From March 2020 to as it stands currently in March 2023, during your whole experience with the pandemic, what do you think you learned about yourself? Did you learn anything that was like very thought-provoking or changing of how you outlooked on different things?
Well, my real job, I work for the Village of Wilson Park Water Department. So we were working every day during the pandemic. So in the beginning, there was no traffic. No one was out. Just public workers, nurses, cops, firemen, all the big people. And it was eerie. And I learned that, I'm grateful that my family was still on and going to work every day, being alive. It was a cultural shock for everybody.
Yeah.
But, you get to Zoom, no one knew what a Zoom was. And then you get Zooms and board games. And, it was a different outlook on life, but we got through it. And here we are.
Yeah, here we are, and it seems like we're better than ever. And I also think that was a good perspective because you could see, I feel like from 2020 to now, I'm just not shocked by anything. I'm completely like whatever, like if there's a riot, if there's a shooting, I think that's very morbid for me to say, but it's the reality. I just think that we're so desensitized because so many things happen at breakneck speed, especially since everyone has a phone, everyone can record things. But, I really wanted to get into the psyche of how you became a junkie, how you became an official. And obviously you've had passion for sports, and that probably started a long time. Having said that, where did you grow up? What did you play growing up? What did you play in middle school, high school, and in college?
I grew up in Wilson Park. I went to St. Aidan's. Then I went to St. Mary's. I played St. Mary's for 4 years.
You played basketball at St. Mary's?
Yeah. Well, we were okay back then.
They weren't?
No, it wasn't the Tim Calusa's years. It was mid-'80s with Brother Kevin. I had a pretty decent career, nothing there. But all of a sudden, one day, I went to my brother's basketball game. It was a semifinal game up at St. Thomas, a playoff game. And a referee made a call, which was like, wow. So the game ended. I go to my mom. I said, listen, if that gentleman can make that call, so can I. So the next year, I started the class.
That's so interesting that you say it that way. And I'll just tell you what I do, right? I'll go to McDonald's. I'll go to the mall. I'll go to the sneaker store. And I'll just listen to these kids. And it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I go, he just doesn't look like he wants to be there. Now, I'll say at McDonald's, I feel like when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, now you know what? Anyone that works at McDonald's, I think there's such valuable skills when you work at McDonald's. I think about somebody in the drive-thru. They're out here multitasking. They're pressing a POS system. They're going on and saying something in a microphone. They're taking somebody's order. They're being patient. They're handling money. Some people are cooking. It's a big to-do, I think. And that's such a big to-do for $15. That's what I think. So I'll see somebody that's 23 years old. They don't know where they want to go in life. And I'll go, have you ever thought about reffing? And you know what the first thing they normally say? They think about the perception of what they think a referee is. They don't think about the money. We don't even get to the money part. They just go like, I don't want to get yelled at. I'm like, you can't get yelled at McDonald's? I feel like it can go very sideways very quickly if you get one unruly customer. And there's another thing that they always say. I don't know anything about reffing, which means to me, like, are you an expert at a Big Mac? Are you an expert at chicken McNuggets? Is it something that you know what the ingredients are, where you feel comfortable that when you go in and you cook it, you know exactly what to do because you've been eating it all your life? So that never makes sense to me. And I just say it this way. If you spend 8 hours and you're working $12, and I'm not going to do the calculations, but I do know that within a 5-mile radius of where you live, Williston Park, there's St. Aidan's, there's Chaminade, there's other schools where there's probably a basketball game where they need 2 refs. Or further, there's probably a lacrosse field where they need 2 refs. Or there's a softball field where there's an adult game happening where they need 2 umpires. What I'm trying to say is, if you work those 2 hours, a doubleheader, you probably are making the same amount within a fraction of the time, 3 hours versus 8 hours at McDonald's. And I try to break it down like that. And they still are not convinced of what I'm saying. That moment when you were at St. Dom's watching that playoff game and that referee made that call, it's so hard to do that when you're young. And what I mean by that is that when you're 23, you still want to play in an adult league. You still want to play in college. You still want to make the pros. It's as if that reffing, aside from any other facet of a basketball game or any sport, right? You can be a statistician. You could be a coach. You could be a trainer. You could be a facilities manager. You could be an assistant coach. You could be so many different things. But it seems like the very, 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 very last thing, last resort, if it has never worked out for you in basketball, softball, baseball, whatever. Okay, we're reluctant, but we'll find out. All right, we'll do it. We'll do it. But then when you meet referees, we feel the same way. We feel the brotherhood. We feel the sisterhood. But it's so hard to get to somebody like that. What made you think in that moment when you saw him make that call at St. Dom's that you were like, I want to do that? Because not many people come to that conclusion. Normally when somebody makes those calls, and this is what I say to younger officials. If I'm in that same situation, a semifinal game, St. Dom's, and I've been in a similar situation, you got to pull the trigger, and you can't care what other people are going to think. You can't be like, I feel bad. You have to shoot. You have to pull the trigger. So I'm just interested to what in that moment made you feel like, you know what, I want to do that. I want to be ridiculed. I want to make those big moment calls.
Well, I was an okay player, but I always loved the game, go to the park, shoot, all that stuff. And I said, you know what? This is a way of getting back into the game by officiating. I said, okay. I was in good shape back then. I said, I can do this. And I just looked everything up, and I said, I'm going to go for it. So I took the boys' test the next year with Jimmy Green. And then the following year, I went to the class for the girls with Linda Long, and I thought I knew the game, but I didn't.
Right.
Those rules are,
absolutely,
they're tough.
Absolutely.
They're tough. Yes, jump ball, over travel, sure. What's a goaltending? What's a palm? What's a carry? What's an illegal screen?
Right.
So I thought I knew the game, but I didn't, and I'm glad I did, and I never looked back.
So just talking about that experience taking the game, and I'm sure you were surprised that you didn't know the rules the way you thought you would. And I think this happens to everyone. We're watching the NBA for the most part because it's always on, right? And you think about the rules and how they call it completely different than, because you're not thinking about it in real time. I'm taking a boys' high school class.
Right.
Then you start thinking about what you see on TV. I'm like, I don't remember it that way. And then you think about your experience at the park, right? And you're like, if there's an attempt from a referee, when they deem it an attempt, you can still catch it, and then you can, start another dribble, which is, when I'm at the park, I'm calling that a walk. I don't care. I'm still calling that a walk. But when you went to the floor test or, took scrimmages, I know there's one thing with the rules. What was that experience like? Because I'll give you another example. I remember as a kid, I wanted to drive so bad. I think every kid wants to drive so bad. You finally are 16 and you're like, oh no, we really have to press the brakes or else we're going to crash the car. My perception of driving is not necessarily the same experience I had when I really drove. What was your experience like when you first got on the basketball court as a referee and not as a player?
I have an interesting background on that. After I took the written test, I get a phone call from Tom Casey Sr. Says, hi, I'm Tom Casey Sr. I think at the time he's the AD at Great Neck South. He goes, I just saw your name. You just passed the written test. The floor test is in 2 weeks. I want you and this other gentleman, Kevin Murphy from Wilson Park, come on down and come on down at 5:45 every day for 2 weeks. And they had a scrimmage. They're in the scrimmage, and I'll teach you how to referee for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So, true story. So, by the time I got the floor test, I crushed it. And I'm always grateful for Tom Casey Sr. for at least looking me up. I never met the gentleman before.
Yeah, did you ever find out how he
looked on the book? I guess I was close enough. Great Neck South's maybe 10 minutes away from my house where I was living. And he called me up out of the blue. I said, absolutely. He goes, what do I need? Just a whistle. Okay. I went down there, showed me mechanics, forms, where to stand, everything. And within those 2 weeks, I guess I did something good because I had a pretty successful career as an official.
That's such a lucky break, right? And I think about oftentimes when somebody's taking the written test, it's like, oh, don't worry, when you get there. It doesn't necessarily apply the same way because, like I said, you know what a travel looks like. But do you know what you need to look like in order for you to call the travel? Do you know what the mechanic is? Do you know where you need a point? Do you know what the positioning is if you have to get bumped? It's all of those things, and it's so hard to convey that in a class when you're just reading the rules. If you didn't have that experience, what do you think would have happened? Do you think you would have at least found all of those different things that he taught you in that interim of 2 weeks piecemeal, and you eventually would have got it? Or do you think like that was kind of like an amazing fortuitous experience that you had early on? And, you know, I'll also say for me, when I first started, I wasn't really taking it serious. I didn't know, you know, in the beginning, you might meet somebody my first middle school game. You don't want to do varsity. It's only $15 more and it's at 7:00 and you won't be. And at face value, it's true. That's true. That's true information. That's how he's perceiving it. But I think you running into Tom Casey Sr. is like such a luck of the draw because now it's like you can't help but not take it serious, right? Like you were already prim and primed to elevate your career from jump.
Correct. Maybe I won't be speaking to you right now if it wasn't for Tom Casey Sr. Just the experience on the court. Experience. You can sit there at home and say that's a walk, that's a travel, until you get on a court. And the basketball is a quick-moving game. You got to make that split decision on a call.
Right.
It's all about experience. So the more you get on the court, the more you do games, the better you will be. And I'm forever grateful again, like for Tom Casey, who didn't even know me. And he just looked me up in the book, and here I am now.
So I assume that you passed the floor test with flying colors. And then after that, I'm assuming that you probably cut your teeth in CYO, which is, you know, for me, I know they gave me the most amount of I didn't know who to call. I just knew call on Tuesday, and they'll give you a whole bunch of games. And, you know, that really helped me. I remember I was doing the 10-second count so hard that I think I had to put Tiger Bomb on because, I just was trying to do it correctly. And I remember so many times that the veterans would be so upset because I would call so many fouls and I did not understand what they meant. Because I truly think now, as somebody that has experience, I think you have to call everything to learn how to not call everything, if that makes sense. And I think in the beginning, those formative times, you really only can go as far as the quality of people that you meet and the quality of experiences that you have. So talking about when you first passed the floor test, what did you do to get games? What was your experience after that?
I called CYO. That's where you start. That's where you start. And I got help there. And I reached out to some people. Joe Gaskin, who lives in Wilson Park also. So I asked questions for him. And just going to games. Just going to high school games. Just watching the officials. What is a trail? What is a lead? What's a backcourt? What's a travel? What's a goaltending? So at that young age, well, not young, 23 is not that young, but
that's pretty young for a referee, I'd say.
You just learn how to officiate a game. Advantage, disadvantage, hot, cold, So it's speed of the game. You go to a JV game, okay, good. Then I'll go to a varsity game the next night. Like, whoa, this is the real deal. So it's all about going out in games. I guess maybe that's why I became a junkie. Just going to games when I was younger, just to see how other officials would officiate, and just watching. And then I'll go to see a game on the weekend. And again, you call in an 8th grade A game different than you call in a 4th grade game. So it's all about what type of game you're doing, and you just learn from what you experienced in the previous past.
You had such good habits in the beginning. I know for me, it was such a hard sell for me to watch other people ref. Because I'm like, I'm not making money. Why would I do that? But you've touched upon it where it is such a necessary step in order for you to get better, right? Not even just being there and watching other referees and how they do things, but also being seen, right? Being seen, because I'll always tell somebody, you could be the best referee in the world. You could be looking at the mirror every day. You could be waiting till November till you get your schedule. But if nobody knows you, how great can you be?
Right.
You got to be around. People got to know your name. Can you just talk about how important that is for just younger officials when they're starting out, why they need to watch? Because, I oftentimes find myself in a conversation. They're like, oh, I think I'd rather be reffing. But I'm trying to tell you, this is a necessary step. Why do you think that's one of the most important things to do?
You think you know the game, but you have no idea. So you go out and learn. You call somebody up. Call somebody who lives in the neighborhood. Hey, I'm going to Herrick's today. Okay, go to the game, watch him. It doesn't hurt. I learned a lot from Joe, going to see him play, referee. So it is important to get out there and do it. And you'll be seen eventually if you go out to games, all right? Don't be mad that, okay, I need to move up to varsity this year. Learn better. Go to a camp. Look in the whistle. Like Tom Casey always said, put your hand up straight, blow the whistle. I was at my parents' house and was like, what's that? Oh, Bobby's practicing his mechanics. Go up there with the whistle. Run. Be in good shape. Just like the little things that you have to do to get better, just do it. And we'll take it, and then eventually your time will come. You'll be found. I was a nobody for a while in the girls' association. And all of a sudden, one coach liked me, and the coach made the playoffs, and the coach kept on liking me. And next thing you know, I'm on center court doing a county final.
That's what happened to me. Yeah. That's exactly what happened to me. And, we talked about this off air, how you moved up very quickly at the varsity level for boys, but in the girls, it wasn't the same experience. Just talking about in real time, how were you able to cope with that? Because I think also, and I'm just discovering this from myself, I had a lot of success this year, right? So much success that I don't want to think about it anymore. Like, I reflected on it one day and I'm good. Like, I'm not going to go back. Like, listen, I accomplished everything, but I'm past that. I already have the goal that I want to be twice as good next year starting November. But I'll say that playoffs is a very strange racket, because once you get a little bit of success, once you get to the semifinals, you're like, okay, am I going to get the finals? Am I going to get the Long Island finals? Am I going to get the state championship? Am I going to get the federation? It's like, as much as before where you weren't even discovered, now you're at a point where it's like you want to keep going, and you not that you're greedy, right? But you just want more. Just talk about, like, how did you stay grounded in those moments of, like, finally getting success, and then just also dealing with having success on the boys' side and then feeling like you're overlooked on the girls' side?
It wasn't easy, because boys, no offense to the girls, but boys is a tougher game to officiate than the girls. Physicality, speed,
yep.
That's known. But, I do a boys game, and then the next day I'll do a JV girls game. And it's like, you put your ego aside. You ref it like you're doing a high school game. You ref it. Okay, this is going to be it. You're not moved up? Okay. And then sometimes you kind of like, what am I doing wrong? But then you just got to keep grinding. Keep going. Keep doing your mechanics. Keep just getting better. Bob, your time will come. Then once it came, it paid off.
Yeah, it came in spades.
And like you said, every time, my goal was to work the first Saturday in March. That was my goal. So every time, late February, you'll get an email or a text from Judy or Joe from Bosie's. You're like, all right, this is it. It's like Christmas. You open up the package. What is it? Oh, good, I got a semi. I got a final. Good, I got a first round game. So it's it's I've had a pretty good career, but you just got to keep going at it, and eventually you'll be found, and hopefully you'll have good success.
So if you met somebody, let's say the incoming class, and they all aspired to be on varsity, aside from keep on going, what other specific advice would you give them to, what are the attributes of being a varsity official? Because it's much more than reffing. And I'll always say the baseline is mastering high school officiating. That's baseline, but there's so many other things that it entails in order for you to become a varsity official. What advice would you give somebody that aspires to have the same level of success that you have already experienced?
Know the rules. Be on time. Be cordial. Dress nice. Show up on time. Just the basic things they talk about. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it. Rotation. And eventually you'll come just like brushing your teeth. Just get better. Know the rules. And you'll be okay.
That's really good advice. If you can, just highlight some of the best moments that you've had as a basketball official.
My best experience as official is doing my first final. There was a 2-man game at the time, and I was at the center court with Al Johnson and Jim Borick. And people were coming up to Jim and Al and saying, good luck. Good luck. And Al was the alternate, and Al would say to me, no, I'm not doing a game. Bob's doing a game. So right then and there, I knew it. I knew what I was doing. And that was a pretty proud moment. And you never take these games for granted. It's a big scene. It's a big to do to get there, and you always want to stay on top.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's like other things that happen to you because now that's starting to happen to me, and I think it's difficult to manage because now I think once you get to that court, people just look at you different. They treat you different. I'm still the same person, right? Don't get me wrong. I think you're still the same person, but people treat you different. How are you able to cope with that? Where now it's like, it seems as though you kind of have a target on your back and you kind of like, you also have to recreate that every year now. Now you have just like a built-in different type of pressure because you don't want to get shut out for playoffs. Right. You want to keep going. You still want to improve for yourself. And then you know that it's a sport too. It's like, it's competitive. Like I'm still trying to kill somebody on the court, even though they're my friend. How did you deal with that when you were starting to have that success?
Well, it's not hard because there's some people not getting the game when they think they do it. You always say matchups. Oh, I got matchups. You don't get the game. Like, all right, wasn't meant to be.
Right.
There's only 3 or 2 people on the court at a time, and maybe 6 or 7 people thought they could get the game. So it's tough. So you have to just do what you do. Don't think about it. Okay, you made a bad call on one end. Don't let it hurt on the other side. So it does hurt when you don't get what you want, but just strive for harder to get it. I know there was a couple officials this year that did a regional and did a county final. New faces. I was a new face back then. No one knew who I was. Everybody knows Steve Hopkins, Mike Kunkel, Tommy, Frank Sheehan. But I was a new man on the block. So it was good to see this year some people got the recognition that they deserved.
Yeah, and just to your point, I don't think I did anything different. I just have been me the whole time. And, it's good to get recognized. I feel like I've had a similar experience as well, where one of the coaches like me, I filled in for a senior night. They ended up being in the semifinal, and it worked out for me. And it might not work like that next year, but like I said, I'm going to keep working on my skill. It's going to make me even more hungrier. Now, when you had to take a break from officiating, what did that feel like when you knew you couldn't be active on, especially with all of that success? That must have been very difficult to deal with when it was kind of taken away from you. What were you doing to satisfy? Is that when you started segueing into being a junkie?
Yeah. I mean, basketball is the best officiating I love. I mean, I'm still doing COL games. All right. It's something I do. And to get that taken away from you, it hurt, but it's like everything else in life. Something else good came about it. I got to be able to see my daughter play basketball. I got to see both my kids play basketball. So it hurt. It was like, what am I doing now? What do I do? Okay, let me come in. Let me evaluate some people. Let me go out and do games. So, in one way, it was a blessing that I got to see my kids. But on the other hand, I'm like, I just love to go see. I love to go up to Locust Valley and referee a game. I like to go to Freeport and referee a game. I always tell people, listen, don't take anything for granted. Okay? Who cares how tough the coach is? You're officiating. I would love to go on the court. You got 4 games in 5 nights. You're tired. Who cares? You're still going out in the game. I would do anything to put the stripes back on.
And
Unfortunately, I can't.
And I think that's just the perspective, right? That's perspective of somebody that has been, thankful for everything that they've gotten, and also just, I think, being alive. You perceive everything in such a different way. Now, you did take up volleyball. How did that turn happen? Because I'll always say, everyone will call me up and say like, oh, I heard this is the geriatric version of reffing. And I'll agree, only because I think about basketball, and basketball officiating translates very well to how basketball is being played, right? You go up and down, not necessarily the same running, but at least it simulates you doing something, right? Reffing volleyball doesn't feel like playing volleyball, right? You're just moving your head back and forth, right? Or you might go under this net, then back to this net, and back to this net, and you make a call. You're not going anywhere. So how did you get into that racket?
I started coaching. It's funny. I was at Christmas Mass. I just came back from Columbia Hospital, and I'm sitting in church, and the coordinator from St. Aidan's is there, Kevin McGardle, and he goes, "Hey, Bob, I need a 5th grade coach. You interested?" I said, "Well, I just took a big test at Columbia Hospital." I said, "If all's good, sure." Oh, my test came back good. So I asked the boss, I asked my wife, she says, "I'm going to coach." She says, "Sure." So I started coaching. And then once my daughter came to 8th grade, she stopped coaching. My wife says, "Why don't you come an official?" She goes, "You bring the age down." I said, "Okay." And I took the test, knowing some of the rules. Mm-hmm. But then you go to class, again, another thing, rules. It's not the easiest sport to referee.
No.
But after doing CYO games and doing your floor test and everything like that, it comes natural at times.
That's so interesting, because I find a lot of people find out how easy volleyball is, but then they realize how difficult it is as well. I mean, they might think of it as like the physical nature of it, which is you just stand somewhere, right? But then they realize like this is pretty hard. And like I told you off air, I think CYO, JV, and varsity, and even the college level, they're like 4 different sports. So it's just very difficult. And I'll always say, I think it's hard if you were a CYO referee and you're grinding, and then you expect to do Kellenberg versus St. Anthony's. When you see a 3-minute rally, you might not know what to do. You might not know how to officiate that. I think that's just a very difficult thing. If you can go back, or even moving forward, would you ever officiate any other sport? Or is there a sport that you wish you officiated going back?
I was asked to do girls lacrosse a couple of years ago. Before I could when I could run, but I like a game with a clock or indoors.
Yeah.
Those games can go wild, but I always put my effort into basketball, and then once that stopped, then I went to volleyball, and I think I'm on the right path for volleyball now. So the answer is basketball. Basketball. But
I will say, as a multi-sport official, I do enjoy the break when we're not doing it. And funny you said about you got to do a sport that has a clock. For spring, I'm doing a sport with a clock and without a clock. I'm doing softball. And shout out to Frank Sheehan and Tom Merle, who was very instrumental. And that's a funny story in and of itself. Frank Sheehan ended up reffing my semifinal last year. And he was trying to tell me, he overheard me talking about one of my baseball games. I had Chaminade versus Holy Trinity, and it was a doubleheader. It started at 8 a.m. at Caniac Park, and this happened like maybe the same year. And I'll never forget that game, and I'll tell you why. There was a soccer tournament that was happening. They brought a table in. They did the registration. There was about 200 kids that signed up. They had warmed up. They had all this pool play. They had the playoffs. They had the championship game. They had the trophy ceremony. I saw them breaking down. By the time they broke down, Bob, I don't kid you. By the time they broke down, it was still the bottom of the 5th inning in my second game. They finished the whole tournament. I worked a full-time job with this doubleheader. And Frank Sheehan is hearing me passionately talk about how abysmal. I love baseball, but I don't love it for 9 hours in a day. I got out of my car at 8 a.m. and I got back in my car at 4:37 p.m. I'll never forget that, because Kaz called me up that day. And It took me about 3 hours to get back to him. He called me at 1 o'clock. I called him back at 4:38, and he's like, "Where you been?" I was like, "I was doing a baseball doubleheader." He said, "Oh, you got to give that up." So Frank Sheehan heard me tell me that story, and he got me into softball. And he's telling me there's a 2-hour time limit. And I must say, shout out to Frank Sheehan. He was correct.
But I don't want to discourage anyone not to referee because I know we're short officials.
For sure.
So if you are a big baseball fan or lacrosse fan or softball fan, get out there, take the test. I know what you read in the papers doesn't look good because of what goes on behind the scenes, but if you're really into it, it's a great passion, and you get paid for it too.
Yeah, and I'll say that I think that when people aren't referees, they focus on the 10% of it, which is the yelling and the vitriol. That only happens 10% of the time, but people focus on that 10% 100% of the time, and they think that's all of it. But it's really not. And trust me, I'm cool. If I'm getting $131 to run up and down the court for an hour and 15 minutes, yell at me all you want. I'm okay. You get to the point once you start doing it where you feel so confident in how you look. You feel so confident in your ability. You feel so confident in what you know, and that you know you're doing the right thing, that you're not worried about people that don't really know what's going on. But then the other sport that I'm doing with the clock is flag football, and it's its second year, and I'm really excited to do that. We talked about your best moment. We talked about your stickiest moment. With that heart attack, do you remember what your partner was, what you were thinking, and like after you got revived, what was that like?
I was up in Locust Valley. It was a girls' game. It was Locust Valley Island Trees, pretty competitive game. It was hot in the gym. And before the game, I was doing the game with Joe Moran. And I was like, "Joe, it's hot." And he goes, "Yeah, it is hot in here." So with 30 seconds to go in the first quarter, I was a trail. And ball's out of bounds. And I started feeling dizzy. And from what I was told, I blew my whistle twice. And I looked at the scoreboard. I saw the white lights. And I face planted.
Wow.
I went down. I was out for 18 seconds. Found out later. I woke up and gym was dead silent. And all I heard was Tony Mara on the ground, who was a trainer at Locust Valley at the time. And he's like, wake up. What's your name? And then I hear parents over me on the phone calling doctors or the fire department, whatever. I woke up and I said, first thing I said to him, I said, "Don't shock me. I have a defibrillator. Don't get it." Okay, good. He's up. And I just remember Tony being there, talking me through everything. What's your name? Where you live? All that stuff. And he got a pillow. He got a blanket. I was like, "Whoa, what just happened? What just happened?" And he called my wife. My wife was shopping at the time. And Tony calmed her down. I got into an ambulance. I went to the nearest hospital, which was Glen Cove. In the meantime, they called my regular doctor up at Winthrop and my doctor up in Columbia. So everyone was there. I went to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 2 days, took some tests. Everything was fine. You know, they find out that I have a symptom called cardiomyopathy. Thank God I had a defibrillator. When I put my defibrillator in 2010, the doctor told me one day it's going to save your life. And it did. So whenever I get a chance to talk to people, whether I'm at meetings or whatever, something like this, go see a doctor. Go see a doctor. What's it going to cost you? $25 copay, and say, okay, you're good. I went 2001 when Rudy Giuliani was the mayor. My wife says, go get a physical. I said, sure. I'm running baskets 5-6 days a week. I'm in great shape. I found out that I had a leaky heart, a large blood in my urine, and a enlarged heart, and a leaky valve, without knowing anything until I got that test. So I'm ever grateful for my wife for telling me what to do. You know, it's a life-changing, but I'm here to talk about it. I got kids. I got 2 beautiful daughters. One's in college. One graduated last year. I got a beautiful wife, beautiful family. So I'm blessed what happened. I'm just glad I dropped when I did, because I could have dropped at Roosevelt Field.
Yeah.
Someone takes my wallet and walks over me and leave, but I was at the right place at the right time. And I'm ever grateful for the trainer, Tony Mara, again, who, by the way, is in the running for being in the Nassau County Hall of Fame. So I did a letter for him. I wrote a letter for him. He's down in Florida now, and we talk, and he's good people.
I already know it's going to be. It's already a great letter. You mentioned some people that mean a lot to you in your career. Tom Merle, Tom Casey Sr. They helped you, and they were instrumental in shaping how you became an official yourself. I just want to give you the opportunity to talk about any other mentors that you had as you were coming up. And, as a mentor yourself, what kind of advice would you give somebody if they wanted to be aspire to reach the achievements that you had?
Well, refereeing in general is not easy. You got to have a passion for it. You got to love it. Some people take it to the next level, and some people don't. And, that maybe that's why we have some issues now.
Yeah.
There's some people who I still talk to quite a bit. I talk to Tom Sheen. I talk to Tom Merle. I used to talk to some other people. I talked to Sherry for some issues. I used to talk to John McCrank, Ernie Orloff. Just the basic rules and stuff. What I inspire, if you love the game like you do, go for it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You do it for a couple of years. Okay, it's not for me, but try it. Don't say Monday night quarterback, like, you know what? I could have been a referee. Do it. Go for it. Don't sit home. Be active. Be proactive. Go to a meeting. Go see a game. Say, okay, maybe do a PAL game or something like that. Hey, let me volunteer. Maybe I can do that. But do it. Don't sit home because we need officials, and just go for it.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to crack the code because I just see there's so many people that would ref if they just didn't focus on that 10%, 100% of the time, right? It's very lucrative, I think.
Right.
So I'm still trying to, maybe you can help me one day with that algorithm. But aside from that, what do you think is your best moment in officiating? Whatever it could be, if you can just pinpoint one thing.
Just going out every day and be my best. Whether it be a CYO game, a girls' JV game, a playoff game, just go out there and do your best.
So you're just thrilled
to be on the court.
You're just thrilled to be on the court.
I would do that. I'm so jealous of these people. Last weekend, couple of weekends, this weekend, people going upstate. I would love to do that.
I can see that when you're in the crowd. I really feel that. I don't feel like you're jealous in a way where you want to Nancy Kerrigan me or anything like that. But I just know, I know when I'm in that moment, I see somebody like you and I've heard your story. I'm very thankful where I'm at.
Yes.
I never take for granted where I'm at.
Correct.
I might not ever come back here. Correct. You know what I mean? So I always think of it in that way when I see you in the stands. So
yeah, it's funny when the doctor says, you can't. You can't drink. You can't have salt. You can't. But when you can't, you want.
Right.
So it's like that first wedding you go to, the first football game you go to, the first barbecue you go to, and people are having a good time.
Right.
You can't. That's when you want it the most. So that's why wherever I go, I want to be that guy or that girl on the court because that got taken away from me. It hurts, but I'm alive. I got everything going for in my life.
Yeah.
In the big picture, I'm good.
Yeah, and you're still giving back, and you're paying forward to other officials. My final question to you is, officiating and basketball has brought you so much in your life. I mean, it's brought you to learn how important it is to have a defibrillator. You've met so many people. You probably wouldn't be speaking to me had it not been for basketball and officiating. But my final question to you is, what does basketball mean to you? What does officiating mean to you? What has it done for you in your life?
Probably saved my life, maybe, because if I was running on the street and I did something, or I was at work and I fell by myself, I was at the right place at the right time when that happened, when I had my heart attack. So maybe basketball saved my life. I'm grateful I have a great wife at home that lets me do whatever I want. For high school, you going out again? Yeah, I'm going to a game. That's what I do. I was doing it for 30 years. Now I can't. So basketball, just being around with the guys, going out afterwards, having a drink, going to the dinner the other night, meeting some people you haven't seen in a couple of years, but you're there.
Great food, too. Great food.
Great place.
That tortellini was so good.
Everything was good. But just being around the people, it was a good living. It was a great time. I wish I could have it back, but God put me on this journey for other people, and hopefully I make a difference in people's lives.
Awesome, man. Awesome. This has been really good. I think this is awe-inspiring for me because, I know there's been years since that's happened, but, I feel like I wanted to share your story only because obviously when you had that great speech with Tom, I just knew that story needed to be told because I know for me, especially this year, and we talked about this off air, I felt like I saw you everywhere, man. I felt like every game you probably were like, this guy's on every game. Literally every game. So I felt like I just needed to speak to you because, I heard that you had a very similar path to me. And, it was just interesting to get to know you. I know we had that connection with Riley and all that, but, I'm continued success, continued health with everything that you do. And, I hope that I can always humble myself when I do referee, that I'm always grateful that I'm on the court because I know that at any given point, it could be my last. So I thank you for those inspirational things that have happened to you, even though it probably hurt, just to know that it's a higher purpose that, a lot of people can learn. And I think that mindset is very important of, just being grateful of, getting those games or just being on the court just in general. Any final words you want to say before we part ways?
Thank you for coming. Thank you for thinking of me. I like to give advice to people. If you can, get a physical. It doesn't hurt. Basketball means a lot to me. You'll be seeing me in gyms all the time. Good luck with everything. It's not an easy job, but keep going at it and keep working.
I will try. So what before I go again, what is April, May, June? What is that whole interim looking like before volleyball season? You going to be doing some CYO games or what?
Yeah, I'll do some CYO games. Say hello to my wife and the kids. Get reunited with them. But just staying healthy, doing the right things, take a couple months off, and then get ready till September or August for volleyball, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, and we'll talk a lot more in volleyball because I want you to become a good official. And hopefully, God willing, maybe you're reffing my games. Who knows? For Bob Wotruba, this is Ralph the Ref. This is The Rant. We are signing out. Peace.